Hi, I'm Kayla, the BookTube Turtle, and this week is Aromantic week. So every year, Aromantic week is in February, and this year it is February 20th through the 26th. I will link some websites down below on asexuality and aromanticism if you want to check those out. But just to go over some basic, very basic definitions. Asexuality is simply a lack of sexual attraction, and aromanticism is a lack of romantic attraction. But these are both very broad spectrums. There's a lot of places that somebody can fall on within those spectrums. So I will also link a playlist of the previous AROACE related videos that I've made, some of which go into more depth on these things, especially the first video that I made called Discovering and Being aromantic and asexual, and my experiences with that. So I will link that playlist in the cards and the description. This year for Arrow Week, I decided that I'm going to talk about my experiences writing romance and romantic subplots as somebody who is aromantic. Before we get into that, I just want to address a question that I get quite a lot, and that I see quite a lot, which is somebody is like, well, I enjoy reading books with romance and watching TV shows and shipping characters and all of those kinds of things. So if I do all of that, can I still be aromantic? And the simple answer is yes. You can 100% enjoy fictional things and then still be aromantic or asexual. They are not mutually exclusive. And the way that I see it is, when it's something with fiction, it doesn't really have anything to do with you, it's the characters. So it's some distance between yourself experiencing something romantic and characters experiencing something romantic. Because I've always enjoyed books with romantic subplots, which is good because most of YA has some sort of romantic subplot going on. But me enjoying those things and shipping characters, whatever, it doesn't make me any less aromantic, because I personally don't want anything to do with romance and relationships and stuff like that. But seeing it in fiction with other characters who are not me doesn't bother me at all. Though there are AROACE people who don't like seeing or reading those things in fiction, and that is just as valid. Like I said, the spectrums are very broad, and every person kind of has a different experience with it. So yeah, basically, you can read what you want, watch what you want, write what you want, and you're still who you are. With that being said, let's get into my own experiences with writing romance. This is mostly going to revolve around Beyond the Gates, because that is my one story that's very solid and that I have actually finished through and followed through into publication. So yeah, I started working on the first book almost 6 years ago, which is insane to think about. I was still in high school at the time, but there was something about it that I just knew that this was going to be the one that I was going to go all the way with and publish someday. And it was also the first story where there was a romantic subplot between the main characters that was an important enough part of the story that I couldn't just skirt around it, you know? Because I had written things before where certain things were maybe implied, or it could have gone in that direction, but this was the first time where it was present in the story. And interestingly enough, I didn't actually have problems writing it in those beginning drafts. I think part of that was because I didn't know yet that I was AROACE, so I don't know, I was just I'm just writing this without having relationship experience, but it's fine, it's whatever. And I was just kind of going off things that I had read in books and seen in TV shows. Because like I said, I've always kind of enjoyed those elements in fiction. And because I didn't have relationship experience myself at the time, I was really focused on trying to find a balance between emulating the types of things I had seen in fiction and still making it feel like grounded and realistic as much as I could with somebody who didn't have personal experience. So then fast forward to the summer of 2019. I was about to be a junior in college, and I had my first relationship. And that was a whole thing in and of itself that I'm not going to go into. It's in my other video if you want to know, again, my specific experiences with figuring out that I was AROACE. But just overall, I didn't understand why I was so uncomfortable all the time and why nothing was like how it was supposed to be that I had seen in like fiction. And then when I had my first kiss, like a little bit afterwards, I was just like really confused, and I kept thinking like, do I need to go change that scene in my book, like the first kiss scene in my book, because like this was not the same. And I was just like, has fiction been like super exaggerating things this whole time? Like, I feel like I've been lied to. I don't understand. Like, I think I need to go rewrite that scene because like maybe it's not realistic at all. But then like a week later, kissing made me throw up, and that was the moment when it clicked for me, and I was just like, oh, I'm asexual. And then it was a little bit after that that I realized that like, yes, I am also aromantic. And then it suddenly all made sense. So like, while fiction things can sometimes exaggerate, I wasn't actually being lied to, and it wasn't like so exaggerated that it was just like completely out of nowhere. It was just that I personally cannot experience those feelings that you read about in fiction. And I was, you know, putting that into my writing, and so then when I was in that like little confused state of like, this is not the same, I don't understand what's going on, I was like, do I need to change this? Because I wasn't feeling the things that you're told you're supposed to feel, and I was very confused until, you know, I realized all of this stuff, and then it was like, okay, no, you should keep the scene the way it is because it is correct. You just personally yourself in real life cannot feel those things. Funnily enough, later on, you know, I've had a lot of people tell me they feel like the romantic elements and like the relationship between Emma and Jesse in Beyond the Gates and the sequel are just like really realistic, and they're there for it and all of that stuff, and I'm just like blown away by that because I'm still over here like, yeah, I don't know where it came from or how I wrote it, like I don't know. It's just, it came from somewhere, even though I can't and never will be able to experience those things that I'm writing about. But kind of going back to that summer and the months afterwards, really that whole year of college was rough, which I talk about in that other video of my experiences. But I was going through a lot of anxiety, a lot of depression. There was just a lot. I was struggling. It was just generally very difficult for me to do anything outside of going to class and watching the show Glee over and over again with my roommate. Like, that's all I did, was I went to class, and I usually had to bribe myself to go to class. Like, oh, if you go to class, you can be back in like a couple hours, and like you can get back in bed if you want to. Which, it was rough. It was rough. I'm a lot better now, which I expressed in that other video. Like, I'm good. I had to work through a lot of stuff, but when I came out on the other side, like, everything was a lot better, and I'm good now. But it was dark there for a while. But I was trying to work on book 2, Beyond the Fire, during that time, and it just wasn't working, partly because I couldn't do much of anything, but then also because my characters are very much in a relationship at the start of book 2, and it was just very difficult for me to deal with that and to write that, and it kind of kept making me feel like I was gonna throw up when I would try to write it or like read that first draft that I had already written back in high school. And it was kind of scary for a while because I was just like, am I never going to be able to write relationships and like romantic things ever again? Like, that really freaked me out, because I love the series so much and I love these characters so much, and I was so worried that I was gonna have to like leave them and move on to something else that like didn't have, you know, these romantic elements in it, and that was terrifying to me because I didn't want to give this up. But after time, after like working through everything, I was eventually able to come back around to it, and you find that distance again where, you know, it's like it doesn't have anything to do with me, it's the characters, which makes it easier to write. And that allowed me to eventually continue the story, obviously, since book 2 is available to buy. It's published, it's out there in the world. I also want to point out real quick, like I said, I wrote the first draft of Beyond the Fire back in high school, and years before I knew that I was AROACE, or even knew what that was. And at the end of 2020, when after book 1 came out, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna start book 2 now, so I'm gonna go read through this very rough draft that I wrote like years ago so that I can start working on book 2 again. And I came across the description for one of the characters, Maya, and I had included a little detail. It was just kind of like put in there, that she wasn't interested in relationships and like just didn't feel that way about other people. And so I was reading through this and I was like, are you kidding me? You're telling me that I wrote this girl to be like AROACE without even like knowing the terms for what that was that long ago? I just think it's really interesting because like even back then I understood the concept, even if I didn't have words to express what it was. So when I moved forward with the book, with like later drafts and whatnot, I focused on making it a lot clearer that she was AROACE. I don't actually say the words in book 2, I do in book 3, but I do call more attention to it than I did in like the original draft, when I had just kind of like slipped it in there, and I don't even know if I realized what I was doing at the time. But yeah, I just think that's really interesting. And even though things are better, I do still struggle with writing relationship stuff. I sometimes forget that like physical affection needs to be included, like kissing and stuff. I just like I forget about it. Like I kind of struggle with that with book 2. I was just like, I mean, yeah, they're in a relationship. What do you mean they don't feel like they're in a relationship? They're like together all the time. I don't know. I feel like it's easier for me to write the stuff leading up to a relationship, like the tension and the awkwardness and like the, I like maybe kind of like you, but I don't know what's gonna happen with this. Or like with Beyond the Gates, it was like, we clearly like each other, but we can't be together because that would just cause so many more problems than we can deal with right now. But it's like once the relationship has been established, I'm just like, well, now what am I supposed to do? My mom and my friend both read several drafts of Beyond the Fire and kept being like, they don't kiss enough, or like there's not enough like little romantic moments, like etc. And so I did work on adding more with each draft, while like still balancing with like the other elements of the story, because like it's not a romance series, it's dystopian with romantic subplot elements. But it still was kind of difficult for me because I was just like, I don't know, I feel like there's like a point where I just can't personally understand things because I've never experienced it myself. But you know, I put so much into it and tried my hardest to write those scenes and write them as best as I could. And I do really like how Beyond the Fire ended up. I think that I did find that balance, and it is a whole lot clearer that Emma and Jesse are in fact in a relationship than it was in like some of the earlier drafts where like they maybe only kissed like once and something like that. So yeah, I'm definitely trying to be more clear about those things, and that like, oh, the fact that they are just like sitting next to each other does not necessarily indicate that they are in a relationship. And I've had a lot of readers tell me how much they love Emma and Jesse and their relationship, especially after book 2, so that really helps me to know, like, okay, I'm on the right track here. Like, we're struggling sometimes, but like we're still good. Though people of course always seem to want even more romance. But I personally feel like book 2 has a good solid amount. And also for anyone who is wanting more, you should prepare yourselves for book 3, because there is a pretty intense scene that happens, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. So yeah, that's my experiences with writing romance as somebody who's aromantic. Overall, I enjoy romantic elements in fiction, and I enjoy writing it most of the time, even if it sometimes frustrates me, and like the times when I just like really don't want to deal with it. And sometimes I do wonder if and how my writing would be different if I wasn't aromantic, but I am, so you know, I'm just out here writing as best as I can. If you are aro and or ace and a writer, please leave a comment or message me and tell me about your own experiences. I would love to hear from you. It always makes me so happy when somebody reaches out to me and, you know, wants to talk about these, you know, experiences that we're having. Also, let me know just generally what you think about romance and romantic elements in fiction. And happy Aro Week! If you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe.